Welcome to a Monday edition of the Social Spreader. Hope you had some good luck over the weekends. Hope you didn't have Alabama. Whew, that one hurt. So, whenever there's a conversation about anything revolving around the goats, I feel that I have to wear the correct shirt. But what I also feel that a lot of sports fans get in trouble with is they have a hard time realizing it when it's happening in real time. And with everything that happened over the weekend, a crazy Saturday in college football, Ray's socks was just weird. And then obviously everything that happened yesterday. So naturally, I'm going to lead with boxing. I do appreciate the fact that to a lot of people, no matter what's going on in the weight class or what's going on in the sport itself, that a good heavyweight fight is something that just can't be replicated, can't be touched, can't compete with. And the sad truth is that I feel that a lot of people may have seen the end of who should have been widely regarded as the greatest of all time. What Deontay Wilder showed and what Tyson Fury showed, and I actually had mentioned something in regard to this in the previous episode. They showed how great they both truly were. But the other thing too is, and this is what's so interesting, in the third round, Fury was, almost a minute away from that fight being over. And then in the fourth round, Wilder was 30 seconds away from that fight being over. What we saw from Wilder in the first round, I liked it. Jabbing right underneath, we'll talk about that later, but right in the rib area of Fury, I thought that would work. I also, as I had said earlier a week ago, when it's a polar bear versus a mountain lion, the mountain lion is going to be getting in some shots, but at the end of the day, can it do enough harm to not get mauled? And one of the things that was so interesting is that any wager after the fourth round, after round 4, any wager you had looked good. Anything. Under 7.5 rounds, Fury with either a TKO or a KO, or if you were to go Wilder on the money line, you were super jacked. You were hoping that Fury was going to come out in that fifth still hurt, but again, not even swelling. And I want to make this just crystal clear. Deontay Wilder is, and these are the words of Tony Atlas. I just happen to agree with him. He's the heaviest puncher we have ever seen, and I don't think that's up for dispute. I also don't think that it'll change. Well, what do you mean, Kevin? He just lost to someone who hit him harder, right? Because that was the heaviest heavyweight fight we had ever seen, ever. And once I saw Fury and a couple things hanging off the belt, I thought that was kind of funny, because when people said that he weighed in right around 280, no. It would not have surprised me if Tyson Fury walked into that ring weighing 300 pounds. And it wouldn't have surprised me either if Wilder walked in there closer to 260, because I had never seen him that big before. I've been watching his fights for a long time, and I mean his fighting weight's right around 220. And so, yeah, when I see those two guys and I see the fight that they had, the only person that could have beaten Wilder that night was Fury, and the only person that could have hurt or knocked down or possibly knocked out Fury was Wilder. One of the things that I've always enjoyed in society, in our country, in sports, I've always truly enjoyed a historical perspective on what it took in order for us to get here, because when you see two goats in the ring, and the other one knows what the other one wants to do. They know each other well. They don't like each other that much. To see the fight that they put on, to see the heart that each of them showed, I would take either of them against a lot of guys in history. Now, I'm talking recent. I believe that the evolution of the athlete is a thing, and the athletes that are playing now are much larger, much faster, much more skilled than they were 40, 50, 60 years ago. The age-old times when everything was phenomenal in comparison to how it is now. Whole other discussion for a whole other day. So in the on the earlier show, I had said something in regard to a lot of the heavyweights that I feel didn't get the recognition that they deserved earlier, late 90s coming up, early 90s going into like the early 2000s. Lennox Lewis, Riddick Bowe, and of course Mike Tyson was there, Evander Holyfield. And I'm always curious just to see how those guys, because what this fight showed me on Saturday night was that size in the heavyweight division is a huge factor, much larger than any other division, obviously, because there's a limit on how much you can weigh. And I want to read off the height and weight of a lot of the greatest fighters of all time over the last 40 years. All right? Lennox Lewis, 6'5", 260. Riddick Bowe, 6'5", 270. Mike Tyson, 5'10", 220. Evander Holyfield, 6'2", 230. When Michael Moorer fought George Foreman, he was 6'2", 220. George Foreman was 6'3", 250. Vladimir Klitschko, 6'6", 240. Vitaly Klitschko, 6'7", 250. And don't even get me started on Anthony Joshua. So, and I look at Deontay coming into that fight last night, somewhere in between 250 and 260, and chiseled in a way that we haven't seen him. As I said, his normal fighting weight's about 220. And so he puts on 30 to 40 pounds of, and with how hard he can punch, and with what he is known for, and after seeing the people he had to fight, and you can only fight the people that you can. I know that there's ways to get around once you're at the top, but I've never truly understood Wilder's criticisms. Out of the ring, okay, but in the ring, I thought he was one of the greatest knockout artists of all time, if not the GOAT. As I said before, this was just a shitty matchup. It's just not a good fight for him. And that kind of brings me into my next point. But before that, if I had to handicap him, and obviously this is extremely rhetorical, Wilder-Lewis, I've got Wilder as the favorite. Wilder-Riddick Bowe, I've got Wilder as the favorite. Mike Tyson, I've got Deontay as the favorite. He's taller and heavier than every single one of these guys, and he's the hardest puncher that we've ever seen. Tony Atlas's words, not mine. I disagree with him, and so it was. In my opinion, they should fight again because no one else. I think those two guys could crush Usyk and Joshua, and so I just don't think that having either of those two guys fight Fury makes any sense. So leads me into my next thing. I just went through a lot of guys that were very large men, and Tyson Fury makes every single one of these guys look small. And regardless of what you think a boxer is supposed to look like, or how his punches are supposed to land, or how you interpret the beauty of the sport is really going to be how you view Tyson Fury. Instance, a lot of people look at him like, man, like he's very herky jerky. It's not smooth. No, it's hard to hit, and that's why after the 5th round you saw Wilder look exhausted, because he was missing all the time, and it takes twice as much effort to hit and miss as it does to hit and strike, and it's a thing. And when you're 6'9", 300 pounds. I'm about 6'1", 210. His arms are larger than my legs. And so even if it's just like this, or if it's just a quick jab, which you saw him slip that left jab on Wilder's chin all night, and it's because he's herky-jerky, and then it's just out of nowhere. But you are literally getting hit with a sledgehammer every single time. And we saw the punch that ended it, which, I mean, ear shots are rough. I noticed at the end of the fight, Deontay Wilder was bleeding out of his ear again. Rabbits are a thing. I'm not accusing anybody, but like, ear shots are real bad, because not only do you get the pain, you get the ringing, and that can be a very disorienting experience when you're trying to fight somebody, when you're trying to do anything in life, and your head is literally ringing. And so I don't think that really had it made any difference on the outcome. But if we're looking at someone now who is undefeated and larger than every single other person in his weight class by a lot, and then you kind of pair him up with people from the past, I have one simple question for the historians or the purists. Mike Tyson, 5'10", 220. Tyson Fury, 6'9", 290. It's a physical mismatch that we have not seen in the heavyweight division to this extent, maybe ever. Maybe ever. And no one can look me in the eye and say, no, Lennox Lewis, that's a fight that he'd win. He's got him by 4 inches and 40 pounds. Well, Riddick could have hung with him, because Riddick was a very large guy. Okay, 6'5", 270, 4 inches and 30 pounds. It's Holyfield, 6'2", 230. Like, think of what that would look like, and you don't see that very often. And I mean, even Vladimir at 6'6", 240, chiseled, is gonna look small to this guy, and that's something that's very rare. And if there's anybody out there who is really harping on Deontay Wilder, discrediting his greatness, taking away from who he's beat, I want you to go and look up Luis Ortiz, and look how accomplished he is, and look at how much of a fighter that he looks like. When I think of a face, when someone says, "What do you think of when I think of a fighter?" Luis Ortiz. My sincere apologies if I'm not saying that right. If it's Luis, either way, check him out. Wilder beat him twice, and he is a very accomplished fighter. So everybody has their list. I don't understand the reluctance to add to it, or the sports fans' way of making round of their Mount Rushmores actually carved in stone, no matter what happens. For instance, if Luka were to start rewriting the record books, which he will, where does he fit in? Because he didn't exist in that NBA a long time ago. But when we're talking about people who are the greatest at what they do, out of the ring, not a fan, but you have to accept what you see. One of the adages, one of the things that I live by is people will tell you who they are. You just have to listen. People will show you who they are. You just have to pay attention. 30-0, a draw where he popped himself up seemingly out of a coma in the first round. I'm sorry, in the first fight. I believe it was either the 10th round or it was 12th round. I believe that was the last round. Ever since he got himself up off of that mat, he has owned him. And he's undefeated. There's nobody else really that could physically match up with him. And I think that's where the fact that it's natural or not, just the natural gifts that he has with his height and his weight, it is what it is. And he's hitting you with clubs. He's hitting you with my legs. I'm kicking you in the face. And because that's how large this dude is. And I don't know how anybody coming up through the heavyweight ranks throughout history can win against that. There, I said it. The other thing too that I've wanted to discuss, it's a theory I have, and I'm a big believer in the evolution of sports, the evolution of athletes, the evolution of the game, the more broad understanding of it. And one of the things that a lot of people do, whether it's in society, whether it's in how old we just actually are, but also in sports, like eras and generations. And what I've been saying now for a couple of years, this is my first time coming public, I guess. This is generation V as in video, G as in game. What we are seeing here is an evolution of generation video games. What I mean with that is the current age group, the current era, the current generation of athletes that are at the top of every sport have now grown up with video games. And I can speak to a lot of people I've met, and I think a lot of you are going to agree with this too. A lot of the football games that we have played growing up, if you had a fast quarterback, four seams, quarterback waggle, quarterback woggle, whichever area of the country that you're in, pretty much any play action pass. If you had a mobile quarterback when you played either Madden, NCAA football, which is on a list that I have to reveal. I have a list of 10 video games that have cost me friendships in my life. Back to the story. And so when I see people like Josh Allen, when I see people like Patrick Mahomes, when I see people like Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, the list continues. It is becoming, and the NFL can only accept what comes through college. College can only accept what comes through high school. High school can only accept what comes from middle school to an extent. You know what? I take that back. It really does kind of start with high school, especially when it comes to football. Basketball, if you're good, you're going to make it. But this is generation video game for football with how mobile these quarterbacks are, how incredibly accurate that they are on the run. But every single time that I see this, I think of me and my friends in high school or in college playing NCAA football. In high school, it was NCAA football 2000 with Ricky Williams on the front of it. And I always had a team. My friend always did. And he always chose the team that had a fast quarterback. And when you're playing that, to be highlighted over a defensive end or a linebacker makes the game kind of hard when you're on the other half of the ball. Offense is fun. But rarely are you a D end or a linebacker that can catch the quarterback. And I just see even Justin Herbert can scoot. Even Justin Fields, he can scoot. I see where the evolution has taken us, especially in the quarterback position. Lamar Jackson, I'm sorry. And I just named half of the league. It's here. It's happening. These guys play quarterback like you play quarterback in a video game. And it's awesome. It is so much fun to watch. And it's almost like if you don't have a quarterback like that. I mean, hell, Daniel Jones and Dak. I mean, come on. The list continues to go. The list continues. And here's the thing. It still can't beat Tom Brady. It still can't beat Tom Brady because he's had 2 Hall of Fame careers. But that's a whole other discussion for a whole other day. But I see where the position is, and let's not mince words. Quarterback is football. There's a reason why there are so many rules now to protect them. And yet, yes, it's a sport. I get it, but it also, it's a business, and they are trying to protect their most marketable and valuable assets. And I don't agree with that 100%, but it is what it is. And at this point, it's not going to change. And so when I take it one step further, I could go on and on about the speed and the size of the wide receivers, because I think anybody who's created a player, it always tends to be a wide receiver or a quarterback. And they're probably usually always fast. I mean, hell, I wish I didn't have to leave out Johnny Manziel, but you know what? Now that I said it out loud, I am kind of happy that I do. Anyway, and then if you look at what's currently going on in the NBA, now the greatest shooting duo of all time, and I don't know who the greatest shooter of all time is. It's either Steph or Clay. I lean Clay. I'm a big Clay fan. I am a big Clay fan. And I just want to ask you guys, and let's be honest here, all right? Let's remember that we're going to be upfront with each other. When you played NBA Jam, was it always a dunk? Or did you always try to shoot threes and get on fire? And if you were on fire, would you ever just shoot layups or mid-range? No, you would shoot threes. And when you played NBA Live 2003-ish, 2004-ish, that's also on my list, were you a good shooting team? Did you try to shoot threes? I think all of us can say to one point or another, yes, that's what it is. And when you look at what the Warriors have accomplished since roughly 2012, it's been 10 years now. It is where Generation Video Game has taken us, and it's phenomenal. I personally was ahead of the curve. I've been shooting from 35 feet for 20 years. And I don't miss very often either. But what they have done and what they have shown you is that there are so many similarities now to the sports we're seeing now, to how video games were played. Now, I understand that when you put a theory out there, you're kind of on your own island. I'm used to it. It's an awesome island. But I just find it fascinating that now more than half of that league, if you are not a mobile quarterback, and you see right now the quarterbacks that are coming up through college, all of them, mostly all of them, are either dual threats or they're simply mobile. They're a lot more mobile than they have been in the past. And so I don't really understand how a 40-year-old pocket passer is crushing all of them. But that's why we do this, right? That's why we love football, and that's why if you did have Alabama, and I, you know what? I actually just want to share this with you real quick. Report came out from Vegas in the Alabama-Texas A&M game. 94% of the tickets were on the Crimson Tide, and a whopping 97% were on the under. A lot of people were thinking 33-10 because Texas A&M's offense did not give you any indication that was going to happen, especially against that defense. I heard one expert come out and say that Texas A&M will not score. They might not get past midfield, and that's why we love it. That's why we love this. Not going to go over any lines here today. One of my listeners asked me, you've mentioned your sheets. Are you going to share your picks with us? Yada, yada, yada. And to answer, I learned very early in life that if you're good for something, that if you're good at something, never do it for free. And if you want to reach out to me, the social spreader at gmail.com, and you want to inquire about my picks and my sheets, I'll be more than happy to talk to you. But we're going to do that more on a one-off. I am going to be doing more leans, doing more fades, and you can take that however you want to. But as I said, if you're good at something, never do it for free. If you do have any action here tonight, good luck with your bets.